I guess we're live. Welcome to ACAB Radio, where we believe all cannabinoids are beneficial. Prevented by Nevada Cop Block and Food Not Bombs Las Vegas. You can come and visit us at nvcopblock.org. Nice. And Food Not Bombs Las Vegas.org.
We should do this all the time.
Live from Happy Earth Market.
Market.
Go to Happy Earth Market at happyearthmarket.com and see all their community building events. We are your hosts. This is Jay Leifer, Special K, our special guest, Marvelous Megan, and me, I'm your host, King Ron. Today we have a pretty interesting show. We're going to talk about the Tashii Brown memorial that we did on Mother's Day and some of the incredible things that happened during that. Some of it was very heart-wrenching. Other of it was very aggravating and unfair in a lot of ways. So,
you know what's messed up is nobody heard all that because it's in the headphones, so they don't know what we're laughing about.
Oh. Oh, I thought that was live. We had a great
You'll
echo
hear it
going
later.
on.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. We should do the whole show that way, for real.
Yeah.
All right. So,
There it goes again.
do we want to start? This is wonderful.
Yeah, so maybe we'll just talk a bit about how the vigil went. It started with arrests and it ended with arrests, and it was unbelievable because it was a peaceful protest. You know, it wasn't even one where we marched to the shouting of chants. We marched peacefully and in silence, armed only with a rose and a picture. You know, but that didn't stop the police from escalating the situation and overreacting like they always do.
Yeah, well, the thing is, they had like 3 undercovers, and then they had all the security from Bellagio, who I'm sure were like ex-cops, because they usually are.
Mm-hmm.
And the security was all angry, too. They were all like saying shit to Pete about like being too close to him and stuff. And when Tom Zebra went over and was asking them about why they were so close to me and Pete at the time, they were being really angry toward him. But the thing is, they tried to make it out like they didn't have a lot of cops there, but then they had like these cops on standby waiting to swoop in and grab people. It's exactly what they did with the Panthers.
Yeah, they had riot police on standby. There were 2 canine units that I saw, like, I don't know, bomb-sniffing dogs it looked like, but they were going back and forth with 2 canines. Yeah, plainclothes officers. It was just overkill for sure for a vigil.
Yeah, you'd think that they'd be more careful with the dogs, considering the historical significance with marches
And
and dogs.
biting babies.
Yeah.
Out there in L.A. area. I don't remember the exact town, but it's the one right by Disneyland where they had the march, and they released their dog, and it bit a baby that was in a carriage.
And well, I mean, even prior to that, I mean, in the '60s, when they had unleashed the dogs on protesters, I mean, the images are there. They're some of the most horrifying you've ever seen. If that's what they were trying to invoke with those images.
Yeah, it's hard to get fire hoses that far out onto the strips.
Exactly.
But yeah, and that's the thing is, like, the Bellagio security guards were all angry, and we weren't even protesting Bellagio. We were just there.
It might be their pay that they were angry about. I mean, I'm not sure that they get paid
about
enough.
getting paid overtime, because that's
Well,
probably what was happening.
Well, maybe their base pay is kind of low.
I doubt
You
that. No, I'm sure they're all ex-cops. They're all angry. Yeah.
Well,
I thought the whole thing was very well put together, though. It was put on by Families United for Justice, co-sponsored by a few other groups, including Nevada Cop Block. Black Lives Matter, UNLV, paid for roses for everybody in attendance. They also had these flyers with images of people who were killed by police, all of whom's mothers or family members were present at the vigil. So I have the narratives for each individual that was killed by police. So I'm just going to read that real quick for you. So, of course, it was for Tashii Brown. So Tashii Brown was killed here in Las Vegas by LVMPD May 14th, which was Mother's Day of last year. So it was the 1-year anniversary. So on May 14th, Mother's Day 2017, at the Venetian Hotel and Casino on the Las Vegas Strip, Tashii Farmer Brown, 40, a Hawaiian native, was distressed and asked the police for help. Rather than providing him with assistance, the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Officer Kenneth Lopera began to chase him and punched him and tased him 7 times before putting Tashii into an illegal chokehold. Despite his sergeant's demand to release him, Lopera refused and took Tashii's life. The LVMPD stated that Tashii would not have been charged with any crimes had he survived the attack. So he leaves behind 2 young children. Officer Lopera has been indicted for involuntary manslaughter. It's currently in front of a grand jury, but they keep pushing it back, pushing it back. My guess is in the hopes that people will forget about it, move on, so that they can quietly, dismiss the charges behind closed doors. The mother, Trinita Farmer, is calling the community to support her this Mother's Day by showing up and demanding justice for her beloved son. She has also extended her invitation to other victims of police violence, and we will have other mothers present to share their stories and demand justice for their loved ones. So that was Trinita Farmer. The other mother was Dominic Archibald. She's the mother of Nathaniel Pickett, who was killed in Barstow. Dominic lives here in Las Vegas, but she's a great speaker. She's come to a number of events, and she spoke on one of the things I remember her mentioning was she recently received the largest settlement in a civil suit for the wrongful death of her son, millions of dollars, which she hasn't seen a penny of it yet, but she considers that like a down payment on justice. I don't know if somebody else wants to read Nathaniel Pickett's narrative that was on the back of the flyer from the march. Would you like to read it?
Yeah, November 19th, 2015, Nathaniel Nate H. Pickett II was walking home. When he was approximately 100 steps from his front door, he was stopped by a San Bernardino County Sheriff's deputy. In his deposition, Deputy Kyle Hayden Woods stated that he stopped Nate because he looked at him several times very quickly and he crossed the street with the light and in the crosswalk. The deputy stated that his engagement of Nate was a consensual stop, and a consensual stop citizen has a right to ignore and or walk away from a law enforcement officer. Nate's consensual stop resulted in his murder. In fact, Nate was stopped for no reason. He had not committed a crime. There was no crime reported in the area for which he would have been a suspect. He was not armed. According to evidence and witness testimony, Nate fell and was beaten on the ground by the deputy and a civilian volunteer accompanying the deputy. He did not resist or strike the deputy, yet he was shot twice at close range and died almost instantly. Evidence in the civil trial included a complete video of the murder. The defense's expert witness testimony did not support the deputy's version of events. It took the jury less than 3 hours to find San Bernardino County and the deputy negligent and liable for Nate's death. The jury awarded Nate's parents $33.5 million, which is the largest settlement for a police shooting in U.S. history. The family is still seeking a criminal prosecution. Nate's body was held in a county morgue without refrigeration for more than a week. When it was finally released to his mother, Miss Dominic Archibald, it was so decomposed that she was not allowed to view the body from the same room. She was not able to give him a final farewell kiss either. Nate was his mother's only child, her only hope for a future and a legacy. After the shooting, Nate was immediately criminalized in the media. Early reports stated that he was a convicted felon with a mental illness who had jumped a fence, become belligerent, and hit the deputy several times. and that criminalization is a common law enforcement practice, which is something we've talked about before. And also, as you hear on that, that's basically the same thing that happened to Tashii Brown, as he was stopped, even though he had not committed any crime, was not even suspected of a crime. And the reality is that he asked the police for help, and that's when Lopera chased him down and choked him to death.
One thing about this vigil that I think was so powerful was just seeing these mothers come together on Mother's Day, you know, a day that for all of them will never be the same ever again. And it's something that, you know, we can't even fathom how that must feel, but they know. And so they had that connection immediately, and some of them meeting each other for the first time. It was a very powerful moment for me, and I think for everyone in attendance, definitely.
Yeah, and there were several other mothers there. I know Junior Lopez's family was there, who was the most recently person most recently murdered by the LVMPD.
Yeah, I have the narrative for that. Junior Lopez was killed April 6th, 2018. That's the most recent one. It was at 4:45 a.m. 22-year-old Junior Lopez was driving with his fiancée, Amber Bustillos. She was present at the vigil, along with Junior's mom and stepfather. So Amber Bustillos and her friend Kimberly witnessed this, and it was just last month, so that's a testament to her character. The whole family, I think, that they were able to find the strength to even show up and to grab a microphone and speak on it when it's something that happened so recently. So I got to give it up to the family for sure for coming out and demanding justice and supporting the other families that are in, you know, similar situations. Junior and Amber had just moved into a new house in the area, and Junior had taken a wrong turn down Madge Lane, a known shortcut in the area that drivers usually speed down to cut time. As Junior sped down the road, the LVMPD pulled him over. Rather than approach the car window, Officer Mills and Officer Rivera, both of them were rookie cops with, you know, less than 3 years experience between the two of them. They exited the patrol car and ordered Junior to step out of the vehicle. According to witnesses Amber and Kimberly, they recall the officers shouting, "Get the fuck out of the car." Junior announced that he had a gun and that he was licensed to carry. Junior exited the car and threw his hat and holstered gun on the ground. The officers then demanded that he put his hands up and that he go down on his knees, which he proceeded to do. So he was following all their orders. Junior shouted, "Don't shoot me, don't shoot me." Those were his last words, and he said so with his hands raised at his sides. He then pushed the gun away from him. As he said, "Don't shoot me," he pushed the gun away, and his hand came up empty, and that's when officers both officers fired into him. Junior then rolled over on his back, and that's when they claim that he was reaching for the gun again. Really was just reeling in pain, and they, you know, unloaded their clips into him. Both women recalled that they heard him gasping for air, and then he was shot again. On Monday, April 9th, the Las Vegas PD held a press conference and released both body camera videos of the incident. Amber posed a question in her interview with Fox 5 News why she couldn't hear "don't" in Junior's phrase, "don't shoot me," and why the first 30 seconds of the audio is unavailable, leaving out the command from the officers for Junior to exit the vehicle and other parts of the witness testimonies. Junior was currently employed with Lyft, and he had an application in with the Metropolitan Police Department. He wanted to be an officer. He completed his written exam on April 4th, just days before the cops murdered him. So it was unbelievable.
Well, one of the things about the Bellagio also, a lot of people do protest there, and I guess just because it's visible, and there's a lot of room there. But one of the things they do is they turn their music up really loud so that you can't hear anything. And I mean, that's ridiculous anyway, but it was really disrespectful to the people there. Their families are trying to speak about their loved ones that had been murdered.
You could tell
And
it was
they're-
intentional.
Yeah, they're
Right.
playing this music so loud you couldn't hear the person next to you, let alone the people on the microphone.
And I thought it sounded a lot louder than average, to try to drown it out and get people to leave, I think, and silence them,
Right. I mean, it's important now that you know. I mean, if anybody's watching this comes to Vegas, this is one place you don't want to support. I mean, boycotting is an effective method. Let your friends and family know when they come into town. This is one place that doesn't support the community. The community will not support them. You'll not take our dollars. Every little bit helps. We all do what we can, and no matter how big or small, we can make a difference. Every little bit helps.
So there were 6 mothers that had lost family members to police violence. One of the others was Alma Chavez. She also gave a very motivational and speech of hope and love and unity. Her son was Rafael Olivas. He was 23. He was killed by LVMPD July 13th back in 2011. He was having a mental health crisis when the police were called for assistance. His mother, Alma, called 911 in hope that they could send first responders to de-escalate the situation. Rather than speak to Rafael, police shot him within 1 minute of arriving at the scene. Ms. Chavez witnessed the shooting, and when she tried to reach her son after he'd been shot, the police held her back and kept her away from him. The police's justification for shooting Rafael was that they saw him wielding a knife. However, Ms. Chavez and another witness both state that Rafael did not have a knife in his hands and that both of his hands were at his side, and that the police gave no warnings before shooting. The police state that they have several commands for him to drop the knife, but that he refused, which is when they considered him a threat. Ms. Chavez took the civil case all the way to the Ninth Circuit. In April of 2016, the court found that the police were not liable for violating Rafael's civil rights. Ms. Chavez will continue to fight for justice for her son. Yeah. It's crazy.
So the thing about I think it's good that the Families United for Justice is putting together these groups, and part of that is all these stories that you hear aren't one cop, and it's not this bad apple, and it's not just one department. Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department is particularly bad, but it's not really an anomaly. You see this all over the country. You see all these stories being posted on Facebook and all that, and all these videos. It's a systemic problem, and the way we need to fight that is by creating our own systems and making those systems stronger than their system. And really, we should be replacing their system with community policing and having that in the community's hands. But in the meantime, it's good that we're getting this, and I hope it's something, it is a national group, so I hope it's something that will pick up and become big across the country.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. There's also churches now are practicing divesting in policing, where they're taking an active role in never calling the police, no matter what the situation, in order to protect the citizens. So, I mean, there's a lot of ways to do this. This can move forward, and it's important to do. There's a police war against the people, and we hear about the big cases. We hear about the deaths, but there's hundreds and hundreds of other cases that happen every day where you see police abuses, where they'll take people out, violate their civil rights, their human rights, and enact violence against them. So you hear about the big cases and not always about the inordinate amount of small cases that go through system.
It's also something that you might not have the opportunity to hear about, because part of the reason you're hearing about this now isn't because it just started happening. You're hearing about it now because people have cell phones and they can pull a phone out of their pocket and record it. And that's exactly what happened in South Carolina when the cop shot the guy who was running away. I can't remember his name right now, but they had already set up a press release about the details of the crime that he was committing and how he was fighting with that officer. And we're ready to publish that and tell everybody how horrible he was. But there was a guy in the next yard that was taking a video of it and saw exactly what happened. Saw him running away and getting shot in the back, and then saw that officer come and plant a taser there so he could use that to bolster his story that he was in fear of his life, that he had taken the taser away and was going to use it on him instead. So that's the thing, is how many stories out there where somebody's killed where there is no video, there is no eyewitness. And even here in North Las Vegas, they had a homeless person that was killed, and they said they could not prosecute the officer because the only eyewitness was that officer. So I guess, there's no evidence. It's not possible to collect evidence unless there's an eyewitness, because you never see a conviction where there's no eyewitnesses.
Yeah.
And you need to film encounters with police on your cell phone, because just to cover your own ass, you don't want to rely on their body cameras, even though most departments use them now. How many instances have there been where they don't turn them on? I mean, in this Tashii Brown case, the sergeant of Kenneth Lopera, who killed Tashii, didn't activate his body cam, and he's the one who gave the order for Kenneth to let go of Tashii, and he, disobeyed a direct order, and his sergeant failed to intervene, and that's what, Trinita Farmer's lawsuit, what their lawyer is talking about, how, they have a duty to intervene. It's like a neglect of duty when you see somebody applying an illegal chokehold and you do nothing, and you give him an order to let go and he doesn't for another minute, and you don't do anything for that minute. How responsible are you when that crucial minute could have been what saved his life, So the last mother to speak was actually Petra Wilson. She's the widow of Rex Wilson, who was killed by LVMPD. LVMPD October 12th, 2016. He was a U.S. Marine veteran and member of the Oglala Sioux tribe of Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. He was 50. He was shot to death by LVMPD in a tragic series of events that started with Wilson's family reporting him missing, and Wilson's life ended after a 10-mile car chase involving multiple officers. He was shot 36 times. The police state that he brandished a fake weapon, and officers reacted in self-defense. The dashcam footage does not match the official police narrative. Rex Wilson's family has been forever altered by Rex's death. He leaves behind his wife, Petra Wilson, and 9 children, 2 of which were present at the vigil. And then after the mother spoke, the floor was open to those in attendance. Ramsey Dennison was there. He got up and spoke for a little bit. He has a documentary award-winning film, What Happened in Vegas, and he talked about some of the corruption that he uncovered within the LVMPD documentary and covered in that, department in his documentary. Also, Pete Iyer, one of the co-founders of Nevada Cop Block, got up and spoke on some of the things that Kelly was talking about, building, parallel institutions, building community and trying to render the state obsolete so that you don't, like how you're saying, not calling the police because they just make it worse, badges don't grant special privileges, things like that. Also, there was a tourist who stopped, and he was from New York, and he watched the mother, listened to the mother speak, and then when the floor was opened up, he got up and speak about how bad everything is on the East Coast, how large the police state has grown. And for me, it was kind of like it was a testament to, just how visually stimulating and effective this vigil was, that a tourist here in Vegas on vacation stopped, listened, and actually got engaged, and I think that's what scared the police, is they saw this march and people marching, not shouting chants, but marching silently with a rose and a picture of, those killed by police to the beat of a drum. and that was it, complete silence. Like, they were afraid of that because they know that this changes hearts and minds. This is what is going to get people awakened to the issue. This is how movements are started, and they just can't have that, which is why I think they employed the tactics that they did with the riot police and arresting our members.
They immediately, I mean, at the beginning of the march, they immediately went in and arrested members of the Black Panther Party. There was nothing done. They went, they targeted them, and then they targeted others after for non-violent situations. Nothing more than wanting to show solidarity and then holding up a sign asking, imploring justice for Tashii.
Well, they absolutely targeted Jay Jackson and the Black Panthers that were there. There was 3 total, including Jay. And they had come and were at the vigil, and then they were going to walk down the street. And I didn't physically see it happen, but I've seen the video. And I heard the descriptions of what happened. But they basically just swooped in and grabbed them, and they used the justification is that they had sticks on them.
They were held for 4 hours while they were trying to figure out the charges.
Yeah, and they also claim that that's because they were dangerous weapons, which I don't know how dangerous a gun is. That you're not, you can open carry, but I guess guns aren't dangerous.
Right,
so.
and we noticed them at a previous march. And
well, that's the thing is Jay, I know, has been walking around with that stick for at least a year.
Yeah.
Right.
He was arrested at the protest last year, and he had that stick on him at the time, and he didn't get charged with that. So it's selective enforcement, and I've seen security guards,
With billy clubs.
I asked a lawyer after that if there was an actual law about that, and he said it was, and he told me, because I brought up the fact that I've seen security guards all the time, he says they're not supposed to have it, but I've seen them. 2 weeks ago, I saw a guy at the Walgreens by our house. They had one of those collapsible batons, and if it's actually supposed to be illegal, they don't enforce it.
Right, and I can tell you that the police go to that Walgreens continuously since it's on Las Vegas Boulevard. There's constant police presence there, so they see what these security guards have. They know, and they choose to ignore. And like you said, selective enforcement.
So we were going to play the video of the riot police, but I guess it's something that I was supposed to set up at the very beginning of the live stream. So yeah, there's a learning curve here. We haven't done that before. So if you want to see it, you can either go to Tom Zebra's YouTube channel, or later tonight it'll be on nvcopblock.org. Or
We'll
find
also,
it on Facebook. Yeah.
when we do the reposting of this, the recorded version, I'll try and see if I could do like the picture-in-picture thing, and it won't have the audio, but at least you'll be able to see the image of it.
Right,
And
the
it's
images are
basically they
powerful.
came in and just swooped in and had like 20 cops there, and just grabbed them off the street.
So we have Megan here with us. She was present, I believe, at the other end of the march, and there were some incidents that happened down the other end. Do you want to discuss a little bit about what you witnessed and saw?
In terms of the banner display?
Well, that could be it. And I really do love the echo effect. It makes me feel so powerful. It's really amazing. I wish it was going out over the air because, I don't know. We're going to get better FX on the show.
Oh yeah.
So there were arrests made at the beginning. It was 3 new Black Panther Party members, and then there were arrests made at the end. The final, after the march, the final display was a banner, 50-foot banner, that Megan and a few others held up on the Harmon Bridge over Las Vegas Boulevard, and the police couldn't have that, so it got all bad, and we'll have Megan tell you all
And
about it.
When I watched Tom Zebra's video of the Black Panthers being arrested, I noticed that it was the same cops. And for some reason, in Tom Zebra's video, when they're arresting the Black Panthers, they were wearing riot helmets. But
Yeah.
I guess I know Tom shamed them about that because it looked really silly. But I don't know if they felt bad and took the helmets off, or
It might have been too hot for them. They are delicate.
Yeah,
They are very delicate, these cops.
yeah.
They get insulted and they cry very easily when challenged.
And they stole donuts, by the way. I
They
don't know if
did.
you
They
remember
did
that
steal
up, but,
donuts.
Yeah.
I mean, you know.
And I have a picture of the sergeant pointing at the donuts. I'm pretty sure she's ordering them. Make sure you get those donuts.
Yeah, so Megan, there was more radical plans for that banner. I know people were talking about possibly doing something else, but you guys chose this avenue because you got word that it was legal, right?
Yeah, so what happened was we identified that the Harmon pedestrian bridge was plate glass. It's tempered glass from the ground up, whereas the other pedestrian walkways, the plate glass tends to start about 4.5 feet high after a cement, I don't know, it's like cement from the ground about 4 feet, and then after that it's glass. So we chose this one, and we wanted to do a totally legal banner display. Not a banner drop, just a display. What happened was I went to call Las Vegas City Council to find out who exactly owns the pedestrian walkways. Because we weren't exactly sure. We were like, they only really appear outside the casino, so what if the casinos own them? Obviously, we're not going to be able to do it if the casinos own them. They would shut it down too quickly. So I went to call Las Vegas City Council, but I was forgetting that it was the weekend. They're not open on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, so my backup plan was contacting a friend of mine who worked under the mayor and Las Vegas City Council for about a decade. And she had gotten back to me and said that these pedestrian walkways are overseen by the LVCVA, which is the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority. And I went ahead and gave them a call. I spoke to a really friendly guy. I said, is this essentially public property just like a sidewalk? And he said, yes. He said, we get about 150,000 people every single day crossing over these bridges. I said, is it fine if I hold up a sign on this bridge? He said, are you performing? And I'm guessing that's because the street performers tend to try and perform on the bridges, and the city is really trying to crack down on that. They criminalize the street performers. They've unionized the street performers because of these kind of tactics that happen with the city and with the convention and Convention and Visitors Authority and everything. And we went ahead and decided that we were just going to hold it up. It wasn't going to be secured to anything. We were just going to make sure that we had enough bodies to stabilize it so that it looked smooth and looked readable through the glass to cars that were traveling southbound down Las Vegas Boulevard underneath the Harmon Bridge. And we got enough people, and we waited for the march to end because we knew that a lot of the march participants were going to be coming back towards that way, and we thought that it would be, a nice surprise for them to see that show of solidarity happening, after they were leaving, because we knew they were going to have heavy hearts after they were leaving that event, especially because Trinita tried to lead the march participants to the actual scene of where he was murdered in the Venetian, inside the parking garage or wherever exactly it was. So we unrolled the banner and we held it up, and we were just hoping to God that some of the photographers from the march had made it close enough to the bridge at that point to get some good photos or videos of it. And as soon as we got it unwrapped and we were holding it up, immediately a lot of the tourists that were passing over on the bridge were asking a lot of questions. They were like, really excited. It didn't seem like anybody was hostile about what was going on. They were really curious. They wanted to know. They were trying to read through it because it was a little bit transparent, so they were trying to see what it was saying. Everybody was stopping and asking questions. A lot of people were giving us thumbs up and filming us.
I think that's why they needed to shut it down, right?
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
so
We
many
didn't
people
get
were
one
interested.
single person who was being hostile about it. And shortly thereafter, the police just kind of appeared. It was at least 10 officers on the pedestrian bridge who immediately were just screaming in our faces, telling us, take it down, take it down. And I was like, it's not attached to anything. So we don't have to take it down. We are merely holding it. And, you know, the banner itself, it weighs a lot. I mean, how much do you think that banner weighs?
It'd
It's
be
probably
about
at least 50
Yeah,
pounds.
at
I
least
mean,
50
that
pounds,
that
yeah.
fucker's heavy.
Yeah, it
And
was.
so it wasn't exactly a slow process of taking it down via wrapping it back up to put it back in the case that it was transported in. Because it was so heavy, it was rolled in a case by someone. And when we were told to take it down, we tried to make sure that we were not ruining it, because we want to make sure that we reuse it, you know. And we also were hoping that if we did it slow enough, that photographers would get some decent pictures of it. So the photographers were able to capture some photos of it, saying Tashii Brown. They didn't get it when it was completely unwrapped and said justice for Tashii Brown, but I'm happy enough with it just saying Tashii Brown, honestly. I was almost crying when we were up there on the bridge thinking that the photographers weren't gonna get a picture in time. I was like, if anything, they're gonna get it saying Brown, and then people are gonna be confused, you know? So as soon as the photographer came and told us that she at least got it saying Tashii Brown, I was like so happy. I was gonna cry. And we followed their orders. We never disobeyed them. We rolled it back up, you know, and that was always the plan. We wanted to hold it up, get a picture, and as soon as we got that, if they appeared and told us to take, you know, to get rid of it and pack up and leave, then that was what we were gonna do. We didn't want arrests to happen, you know. We tried to stay within, you know, the lines of the law with this. Everybody, you know.
Everybody complied as much as they could.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
you know,
And also,
for something that
everybody
was
was up close to the glass because they were holding it, so
Yeah.
it was not obstructing anything.
Yeah, absolutely. We
Right.
were all the way off to the side, and we had been off to the side for probably like at least an hour. We were on that bridge just eating oranges and hydrating and waiting for the event to end, because the event was running a little bit behind schedule of the march. And they stole a box of donuts from my friend, and
And we have video evidence and
Yeah.
photographic evidence of
and
I think that's what attracted them, was the smell of donuts.
that could have been.
That's what gave away the
that.
location.
That's right.
Like at first they were standing in a big line in front of the manor, and then all of a sudden they saw those donuts, and you can see there's just a group of them.
You're like, we got to
around
get
the
rid of these
donuts.
guys and do whatever it takes to get rid of these guys so
Yeah.
they leave the donuts, man. We got to get to them
I mean, to be
donuts.
fair, we don't have actual footage of them stealing, like physically stealing the donuts, but we have them surrounding it, and then the donuts are gone.
Right.
maybe that's why they were so close by. There was a Krispy Kreme right at the end of the bridge. Like maybe that was our fuck up.
Well, I still
don't know.
thought, you know, I still thought that with a little bit of forethought, it would have been good for us just to throw the donut, and then when they ran after it, because, you know, they couldn't have resisted,
Yeah.
run the other direction.
Right.
So I think we could have made our getaway if we had thought out the donut plan a little better.
Yeah.
So footage of that incident is available. I know Kelly had some footage, so that's on Cop Block as well. But to me, when I watched it, nobody was blocking the walkway at
No,
all. You
wait,
guys
I
were
don't-
up against.
Except the cops.
Yeah, if
Right.
anybody was blocking, it was the 10 or 15 officers standing behind you guys.
But-
Yeah,
Well,
that's
what
the
it
thing.
is-
They were standing completely in the center, forcing all the pedestrians to go around
But that
them.
doesn't, I mean, even that, I mean, if you're, that's
Right.
right, you're not blocking. If you, like, somebody walked around you, then that's not blocking.
One,
Blocking means
that's the other thing
stopping.
is you can see the flow of traffic around
So-
them, and half of the, even when they were there, half of the bridge was still open.
Right, it's a
And
very
they could easily
wide
walk by.
bridge. Very wide bridge.
And the other thing about that, if they weren't shamed by what their coworker did, and Lopera worked for the convention authority group of officers, so he worked in their department. So I'm sure a bunch of them know him. So they were probably mad personally because of the fact that he's being charged for the murder that he committed. And that's why a couple of them were really angry. If you watch that video, a couple of them were just like raring to go and
Well-
wanting to have an excuse to
Yeah.
do something.
Right, I was, one of the officers aggressively, as I was walking past, complying with their order, I think they told me to move or something, and I moved, and one of the officers actually came up and bumped me the aggressive push.
But so the thing
to
is,
it,
they
so-
could have let everybody stand there with the banner, and probably 15 minutes later, everybody would have got tired and taken it down anyway.
Yeah, because it's so heavy.
Right. They chose to escalate the situation, as always. I mean, they're not there for the people. They're not there for justice. I had one officer smirking at the idea that we had a banner up and what the memorial was about. I mean, I don't understand it. If anything, they should have been all hanging their heads in shame, or at least some sort of support, or being like, we don't support what happened. Not one. Not one would say anything, and one officer was even smirking, smiling at the thought. So,
No, I know you were wearing a Nevada Cop Block shirt, and
oh, that's true. Yes, I was.
I wouldn't be surprised if that's why they targeted you personally. So why don't you talk about what happened to you?
Yeah, I think you got targeted, first of all, because you were arguing with them and giving them shit.
Yeah.
And also, I had my shirt, but I had put the Vigil shirt over it, so I didn't have my Nevada Cop Block shirt visible. So they probably targeted you because of that.
That's true. I mean, what I do usually when we do Nevada Cop Block is we film.
Yeah.
We film. These are officers. They're in public. You have a right to question them. Every person has a right to question them, and you should. If there's something that you feel is not right, then you ask them, hey, what about this?
Like trampling on the First Amendment and the right to assemble and freedom of speech.
Right, and it's very difficult when you have at least a dozen officers lined up in a row, looking like a panel, not to go to each one and ask them individually, hey, what about this? How do you feel about this? Kelly, you asked a tremendous question
That's
to one
the
of
thing
them.
is, like, at one point, I asked one of them, I said, did you tell your mom Happy Mother's Day today? And then I said, well, Tashii Brown didn't. And it's because of your coworker, because he choked him to death.
Yeah.
And
He kind of looked at
he
you
looked,
like he wanted
well,
to.
if you watch the video, he looked at me like he wanted to choke me to death.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. If that affected him so much, me asking about whether he asked, imagine how Tashii Brown's mother, Trinita, feels every morning when she wakes up, and especially on Mother's Day when she woke up and found out her son had been murdered.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a very tough thing. They claimed for me, they told me, you're blocking the way or something. I mean, it gets confusing, because you're right in the thick of things. But, move along, you're blocking. And I said, I'm walking. And then I turned around and walked back the other way. And there was nobody, I wasn't stopping anybody from the walkway, from going either way. The video proves that people are passing me back and forth on both sides. They chose to arrest me at that time and put me in handcuffs for essentially blocking the sidewalk or the walkway, which is a $1,000 fine, which, I mean, anything else. If you think about it, first of all, blocking a sidewalk is a $1,000 fine and you go to jail. What a waste of resources and an insane amount. Blocking the sidewalk isn't creating a hazardous thing. If I was, and I wasn't blocking.
Yeah, even if you were doing it, it's $1,000 for being rude to someone.
Right.
That's what it really amounts to.
And the way that I looked at it is like, oh my God, we have people that are speeding in cars. It's essentially a ton vehicle, a ton bullet, driving at high rates of speed, which is a danger to the community, and they stop people for that. They give them a citation, and off they go. So I'm with my legs walking, and it's a $1,000 fine, and you get what? A $200 ticket for speeding, which is so much more dangerous.
And a night
you
in
don't go
jail.
to, and you don't go to jail for creating a much more dangerous situation.
Yeah.
It's used as an intimidation tactic. It's used to shut down the things that we do.
And it's one of those throwaway charges that they use when they want to just arrest somebody.
Yeah, they just wanted to shut it down.
Just like the video we have
Right.
from the fight night before, which is the same night that they you were arguing with them, really, and they
Debating.
were like,
I debate.
We're
I
gonna-
don't like to argue.
that we're
I'm-
going to
I'm a
arrest you
peace lover.
for blocking the sidewalk. And I had my camera on me, and I turned around and I'm saying, who's being blocked? It was
Right.
like the whole people are riding by, there's nothing. And the other thing about that, with like the banner, their charge for that was going to be storing materials on a walkway.
Yeah.
And we weren't storing anything. We were holding a banner.
Right.
Nothing was being stored. You know, it's
Yeah, it was
I
pretty
like-
much a technicality because they were saying, well, if the case was in motion, then we wouldn't be able to cite you. But because it was laying down on the sidewalk against the glass,
So if we
then
would've
all
had
of a
somebody-
sudden it was like we were leaving it there for 5 years.
yeah, if we would have had somebody walk back and forth with it and actually block pedestrians who were trying to walk,
Yeah.
then it would have been okay.
And Ron's charge, it said obstructive use of the public sidewalk. It was a
Oh.
misdemeanor. So to me, that's them pretty much admitting that these pedestrian bridges are the equivalent of a sidewalk. So if we would have did this down on the sidewalk, down on the strip, and they would have come over and said, take it down, that would have been just as much bullshit to me.
Right. I mean, nothing we did was illegal.
Yeah,
That's the thing.
nothing at all.
We
And
double checked.
they
We made
confirmed
sure.
that
so
in
they,
person.
Yeah.
They confirmed it in person. Two of us separately asked two separate officers, have we committed an arrestable offense by doing this? And they're like, nothing with the banner is arrestable. It's just that, they were able to get us on a few other
Technicality.
ridiculous
Right,
things.
and they set it up. The people that were arrested were set up. They went out of their way to formulate charges to have us arrested. It was crazy. It was just ridiculous
The
that
way
they
I
would do
see
this.
it, yeah, the way I see it is what it boils down to is that was a powerful banner. I mean,
Yeah.
that thing was 50 feet by 5 feet. Justice for Tashii Brown. People were stopping, taking notice, looking at it. And, when it comes to upholding their oath to the Constitution, which they swore to uphold the Constitution, so if they have to make a choice between the First Amendment, freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, or tourism, they're going to choose their, corporate overlords
Yeah, and
and
they've already-
tourism every time.
Absolutely.
They've already made that
Absolutely.
choice,
Right.
100 times before.
They've turned to the dark side.
And yeah,
There's
and
no going back now.
they want to hide their shame is what it really is. They don't
Mm-hmm.
want people talking about how one of their coworkers murdered Tashii Brown
Yeah.
a year ago.
Right, and these are the same officers or the police department that when it happened, when the police union set up I don't know if it was a GoFundMe or similar, like collecting funds.
Yeah.
All these officers were kicking in money. Not only do you kick in money, you can make comments. And like, we stand with you, brother, thin blue line, ton of thin blue line, where they all stood and made horrible comments that it didn't matter, that, right or wrong, we're behind you.
Which is what that cop said at Coffee with a Cop, right or wrong, they're going to enforce laws. So,
Yeah.
like I said, they've already made their choice a long time ago. And the other thing is, they have no shame when it comes to supporting cops. That one cop who was arrested, who everybody made a big thing about because he was at the shooting in the hallway when they stood there for
A
75
child
minutes.
molester, right?
Yeah, he was a child molester. He was
Right.
molesting a family member who he started molesting her when she was 9 years old. When they told him that they were getting ready to file charges on him, he started trying to find that girl so he could intimidate her into not cooperating with the prosecutors. Some of his friends that worked on the department looked her up in the police database to try and help him find her. So we're not talking about one cop who did a horrible thing. We're talking about a whole group of cops who not only
It's a
didn't
conspiracy
care
or
that he did
collusion.
that, but wanted to help him intimidate a girl who he'd been raping since she was 9 years old for almost 10 years.
This is Metro we're talking
Right.
about, by the
Oh,
way.
I'm sorry. Just a quick update. Of all the people that were kidnapped by the police, all but one of us have been released. One person is still being held.
I'm going to guess it's probably Jay Jackson.
Jay Jackson.
Jay
And
Jackson.
supposedly they're charging him with a felony for carrying a stick.
Right.
Yeah.
But we just got word that all the other people now are on their way out.
So
Yeah.
2 people were
I'll be
arrested.
going and picking up one of them as soon as I leave here. So.
Yes.
Well, yeah, as long as the police aren't watching, and then make sure they do a stop on you to intimidate you. So, it was a pretty big event on Mother's Day. Hopefully, the people that were there and the people that saw it and the people that didn't know, that we informed about it, because I made sure, and we all did, was inform everybody about what happened. And I was kind of surprised that more people didn't realize it, because it was kind of a big incident that happened. I'm always shocked when you mention something, they're like, I don't know.
You know, I think the local mainstream media is to blame for that because they don't talk about it much. But in regards to the Vigil, I mean, the whole alphabet soup was out there covering it, ABC, NBC, CBS, and you know what we got? We got a minute of coverage from each one. 1 minute story for each one. And you know what? They all left out the police response. None of them mentioned, you know, riot police deployed to the Strip. None of them mentioned people arrested for holding a banner. You know,
Right.
5 people were arrested, others were cited simply for
Right.
exercising their freedom of speech.
Right. One quick side note that, you know, not everybody knows. I was actually in, you know, lockup when the news came on, and I actually got to see the news story. And right after that, it was a station that does dirty dining.
Yeah.
And the very next story was about dirty dining, which is where the health department goes in, and it just happened to be they did the facility that I was in, the Clark County Detention Center, about what a filth hole that it was, and how they had spoiled food.
As you're eating their
But-
food, you're watching this.
But they didn't shut them down, huh?
No, they were still serving. I unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on whether you like jail food or not, I don't have a real issue with some of it.
I did.
I missed
I didn't eat for
dinner,
4
and you know they kicked me out
I didn't eat-
before breakfast.
I didn't eat
I
for
was
4
very
days
lucky.
when I was in there.
So, but to watch dirty dining, and you know, you're sitting there going like, well, my meal is coming out, and now I know that they use spoiled meat, expired products. There's pink and green slime on their equipment. Boy, that inspires. You know, builds an appetite right there. So,
Yeah, the city actually has a contract with a company that numerous
Amaret,
counties,
I think.
yeah,
Amaret or
have,
something?
have ditched them because they're just so terrible. But you know, CCDC still uses them.
And CCDC is on Yelp, by the way, so if you want to go give them a review, you can do that.
yeah. So, I just have to go a quick time check. Are we good?
All right, so we should be wrapping up pretty good here.
Yeah,
I
that's
just-
good. I don't want to go over, so.
I just want to say it's unfortunate that Trinita Farmer, who was walking back from the march, didn't get to see the banner because of, you know, police decided to be dicks, pretty much.
Right.
I think it's something that really would have been good for her to see. You know, that's the whole reason why we did this vigil was, you know, if we can get enough of the community to come out and the news show all these people in support, then maybe these charges will stick on Officer Lopera, you know, and just be there for the families and
Well, that's the
let them
other-
know the community's behind them.
That's also the other thing is on the 24th, they are supposed to have the grand jury come back, which is, they've already delayed it twice, but they're reviewing the charges, which means they potentially could drop the charges against him. So the next time that they're going to do that, supposedly, is May 24th, and we should have people there in the courtroom to let them know that we're paying attention.
Yep.
Yeah, it's tactics that we use to apply pressure on the criminal justice system. Like a lot of people say, well, what difference does it make when you go out and you march and you do this or that? Well, just let the criminal justice system take care of it. Well, if nobody shows interest and this gets swept under the rug, then they feel inclined that they can get away with just dropping the charges, you know?
Yeah.
So that's why we do what we do. You know, we're passionate about police accountability because we know that if the community doesn't hold them to the account, they're not going to lock up their own people. They've shown this time and time again. So that's what we're doing, is applying pressure on the criminal justice system to let them look, no, we're watching you. You better convict this guy or, you know, it's going to get ugly out here.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
They really thought that by forcing us to roll the banner back up, that onlookers suddenly, you know, would become disinterested. But really all they did was draw more attention to what we were doing when they rolled up all of those police cars on the strip. They literally put up crime scene tape as if we committed a murder. And even, you know, after the banner was taken down and we were all back down on the strip, we were out by the squad cars where our people were being kidnapped, and there were still so many people coming up. You know, I was holding up a Justice for Tashii Brown sign that had gotten left behind by a person. And there were still so many people who wanted to know what happened, who stayed to listen to me tell them the entire story of how Tashii was murdered. And every single person was sympathetic and supportive. Every single person. There wasn't a single person who gave me attitude or who mocked us for being down there. You know, there was probably about a group of like 30 people who were standing, you know, up the stairs staring at the squad cars while everyone was kind of being detained into the cop cars and everything. So really they kind of helped us out even after they made us take the banner down, because they drew even more attention to themselves.
Right.
People were like, what the fuck is going on here, you know?
Yeah, when they bring lights and action, man, people love to see what's going on.
It's just, I was like, well, we were standing on a publicly funded, you know, taxpayer funded. These pedestrian walkways are funded by revenue bonds through the LVCVA, the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority, and those bonds come from the taxes for the rooms. You know, there's a room tax when you get a hotel room here. Also, it comes from taxes for like banquet rentals and convention room rentals and stuff like that.
Yeah, and the cops do that, and they have no idea that they're actually drawing attention to stuff. Like when we got arrested for the chalk, before that, nobody knew what was going on except the people that happened to walk by that day. When they arrested us, it got picked up by the AP and it went national. So they hurt themselves when they have these heavy-handed responses.
Absolutely, because most of the people that are down on the street aren't, you know, just locals walking around. Most of them are tourists, so they're recording us with their cell phones. They're going home and talking about what happened. They're completely horrified by the story, and it works to our benefit, you know, no matter what. They tried to, you know, shut it down, tried to keep it all hush-hush, and they ended up making it even bigger than it would have been.
Exactly. I mean, you know, the news, you know, vans are there, though, unfortunately, that they don't report as well as they should.
Yeah.
They really do. There needs to be some tightening up there and accountability on their part for what they do. But we have other groups that come out and make sure that they video and get the news out there, and that's what we do. I mean, here at ACAB Radio, I mean, we're here to let the people know. You know, people get this. You could share these stories with your friends. You know, when you watch the show, let them know. Let them know that, you know, it is all power to the people. We have the ability to make a difference. We have the presence, if we join together, to change policies, to change thoughts, to make this a better place for all of us, a safer place, especially when it comes to things like police brutality. You know, a lot of people say, you know, there's nothing I can do. It's too big. Police are too powerful.
Yeah.
I'm saying they're not. I mean, you look at me. There's nothing remarkable about me. I'm aged. I'm handicapped. You know, I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer. And yet I can get out there and make a difference if I can do this. Little things mean a lot.
Absolutely.
Well, and the other thing is, you know, they have more resources than us, but, you know, obviously we fund them, you know, against our will. But the thing is, we've got the numbers. You know, their numbers are nowhere close to ours, and at the very least, you can put it out there publicly, share it or whatever, and do your own podcast if you can, and just get it out there.
Yeah.
And if you see the cops doing something, film them.
Right. You know, and everybody's welcome. I mean, if you have video, if you want to send us video, that's something we could put out and we could talk about on the show. I mean, you could participate in ACAB Radio. You know, send us your information, send us your videos. We'd love to put them up. The more people that are aware of what's going on, the more power we have. And like I said, when I was in there, when they kidnapped me, I didn't stop. You know, I was a captive, but all the other people were a captive audience either. And I shared the story with the other people that were in there with me. So never take, you know, never leave a chance unturned to take advantage of a situation where you can inform people.
Yeah.
The more we inform them, the smarter we get, the more woke we get, and the more power we have.
I think the reason that people responded so well to the story, that were, you know, the passerbys that were stopping and asking me to elaborate on what was going on, was that I mentioned that he had went to the police for help, and that his family had previously told him that if he felt he needed help, he should try to go to an officer and ask for a CIT officer, they receive crisis intervention training, and they're supposed to respond to mental health episodes and whatnot, not to kill people. So don't ever think that you're the exception. Don't ever think that your loved ones are the exception. Don't think that everyone who is killed by the police has done something to warrant that. The number one thing that creates, anti-police activism is the police themselves. A lot of these people, a lot of these family members, even from the march, were police supporters up until their loved ones were murdered.
This could happen to anyone.
And yeah, it can happen to anyone and for no reason at all, and you'll never see them held accountable for it. So.
Right. After the Tashii Brown, his mom, suggested that he go to the police. I grew up, that's what I was taught. I have a son now. I never taught my son to, if you're in danger, find a police officer.
I tell people
to run
do
the other
not
way.
call the police, because
Never.
how often does somebody is attempting suicide and the police show up and finish the job for them?
Yeah.
Correct.
It's the police.
Or you call the police and they show up at the wrong house and kill somebody, and then it's your fault for calling the police and they went to the wrong house and shot the
Right.
dog.
Yeah. So,
I just want to do a special thank you to all the families, everybody that came out to the vigil, Families United for Justice, Force Trajectory Project. There's a great article that was just released today about the vigil on forcetrajectory.com. Lisa's son, Corintha Fenley, with FDP and FE4J, Makaija Daniels with Black Lives Matter UNLV. Everything went better than I could have imagined, so yeah, it couldn't have been done without them, and they did a fantastic job, definitely.
And also, when we were doing the vigil and we were walking, people were asking, who was Tashii and what was happening, and they had printed out flyers for people to take during the vigil and handed them out, so
Yeah.
it actually got a lot of response from people.
right, so I guess, is that time?
Yeah.
So one last thing. When is the Monsanto anti-medicine?
The 19th.
Yep, you want to do the plug, and give a time and a place for everybody to come through, please, because this is an important issue also. Everything is tied together.
So,
Can you do it echo style too?
I could. Yeah,
Fighting!
I could. Hello. This Saturday at Commercial Center, we'll be hosting the March Against Monsanto. The March Against Monsanto starts at 10 o'clock. We'll have 3 speakers. Benny Willis from Joy Camp. We will have Nick Brannigan from just being fucking Nick Brannigan, the
Right.
badass that he's always been.
Yeah.
and
Former pro
and the lady,
wrestler.
oh my god, I forget her name right now. The lady that owns Herbally Grounded, and she'll be
nice.
she'll be speaking as well. And if you guys don't know her story, it's just amazing. She literally cured her own cancer with herbs because she just wasn't going to give up and she wasn't going to take chemo. So the march starts at 10. Speakers from 10 to 10:30. You'll march all the way around from Commercial Center to Maryland Parkway, around and back. When you get back, you'll be welcomed by drummers, and then Vera Anderson will be playing right then at 11.
Nice.
And we'll have a whole food festival set up, and then the acts just go throughout the day, as far as just singer-songwriters and a couple other people, and it's just gonna be a fun day.
Sounds wonderful, guys. Don't miss it. Come and support. They support us. They listen to the podcast. Come and support them. Show the love. Show the love for real.
All right.
Thank you, everybody.